bring about sustained peace, because the lack of war is not always the presence of peace.
Yeah, exactly. And then we hope that Sudan is able to reestablish the basic state functions after it has nearly collapsed. We hope that things begin to pick up right from now.
Absolutely, absolutely. So from Sudan to culture, Afrobeat pioneer Fela Kuti has become Africa's first Africa artist to receive a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. The honor was awarded posthumously in Los Angeles, recognizing his groundbreaking music and outspoken political activism. Now, Fela's legacy continues to resonate decades after his death, with his sound influencing generations of musicians worldwide. The Recording Academy said the award acknowledges not only his musical innovations, but also his fearless resistance to oppression, cementing his place as a global cultural icon. This is coming, of course, after that rift, would I call it, between Fela's children,
yes,
and Wizkid, another very popular Afrobeat musician. So I don't know if this would quiet it. Is this to finally get us okay?
Regardless of the rift, I feel like Fela is someone that, in fact, this award is even long deserved, even before his death. But then, since we're having it now, it's still very much valid. Fela is a legend, and he will forever be a legend, especially when it comes to African music.
Yeah, but you saw a lot of people who insisted that, oh yeah, Fela was good, but Wizkid has taken over.
There's no comparison between the two.
You don't think so, but it was interesting to see that in the during that rift it became Fela versus Wizkid.
New age.
I didn't exactly.
Old age.
It was. I mean, you would also forgive your generation.
My generation. Okay.
The Wizkid, that's his name, right? Wizkid generation, for not understanding what Fela stood for us. Fela stood for us as the voice that could speak the only things that our fathers could not even bring ourselves to say in music. Fela's mom stood for us, and it irritates me sometimes when I have these conversations and they say each time you want to see her, it is because she was the first woman to drive a car. She was so much more. Yes, she was more Fumilayo Ransom Kuti. She was way more than just a woman who drove a car. She was one of the loudest voices against
I
government.
agree with you, because the only time I got to know that there were other aspects to Fumilayo Ransom Kuti was when this Nigerian scriptwriter, I think Kehinde Balogun, when she wrote a story about Fumilayo Ransom Kuti, that was when we, the Wizkid generation, were able to see that.
Generation,
yes, like you said, we were able to see that Fumilayo Ransom Kuti was much more than a woman that was just the first person to ride a car. We saw that, okay, she was also an activist, and she was also very much participatory in terms of gaining freedom for people or even the less privileged. So I think bringing the old back to the new age, bringing the old generation back to the new age, at least it gives us the sense of knowledge, because sometimes we talk out of ignorance, we don't know these things, but thank God for history, and thank God for people that are still there to remind us that, oh no, you people, you have to go back to the history book and give respect to those
but that's one thing we need to also address in this country and across Africa. Our stories aren't being told, and that is why that segment of yours is very important to me. Our stories aren't being told, and it needs to be documented and told properly. I'm not saying it's completely that bad, but I'm also saying that we can do better in telling these stories, so that we know when we discuss Fela, we give him the honor that he deserves. if you read through what Fela has also suffered in his bid for activism, he's the only one who looked the military in the eye and said what he wanted to say, all talking about good governance and how it wasn't reflecting in the people of Nigeria. So I am really happy for this Lifetime Achievement Award.
But let me ask, if it wasn't Fela, who else do you think would have won this kind of awards? We've also had music legends, late music legends, of course, like Razep Africa. We've had people like Miriam Makeba from South Africa. We've had people like Lucky Dube from South Africa as well. But then I just think that Fela is just a perfect fit, because aside from his music, the grace he carried in music, he also was very, very instrumental in terms of being outspoken and in terms of the activism work that he did.
You just mentioned something that opens up a lot. Must we compete? Everyone has what makes them tick. I'm just saying that Fela was fearless. You know,
yeah,
was fearless in the face of he was fearless in the face of everything. You know, so while Miriam Makeba did her beat, she was a music legend. Some of us grew up listening to watching our parents dance to her. Lucky Dube is inarguably, I mean, but we're talking Afrobeat now. You know, where
how about Razep
Africa was good too. But why must we compete? That's the question I had with the whiskey people. Why do you need to compare?
That's what makes it more interesting.
No, it doesn't. I don't think it makes it more interesting. I feel like, just listen, we all have our talent and skills. We all express our talent, especially in the creative industry. We all express our talent and skills differently. All man get how they doing own, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, everyone has theirs. I don't think we should compare like that. However, in my eye, Fela can do no wrong. Fela is really deserves this first African to this Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award.
We should also specially recognize those Africans that actually won the Grammy Award, like Tyler from South Africa. She won the Best African Music Performance for Push to Start. And we also have Walter Kellerman from South Africa, who won in the New Age / ambient category. So all these people are showing African musicians, they're showing us that, okay, we are gaining recognition across the world.
Across the world.
Yes.
No, I mean, we can't even say too much, because if you watch how it's been going over the years, you realize that African creative industry has gone beyond. In fact, I think we have ignored our government to ensure that we make Africa proud. There's nothing, I'm telling you, you don't even know how exciting it is. You're not in an African country, you're in Europe, and radio is playing Davido. You want to
yes. Shout out to the nominees also, because even if they didn't win, at least they were nominated. Burna Boy from Nigeria, Davido and Omale. We had Ira Star and Wizkid also. So it's a very, very welcome development. And we hope that by the next Grammy we are able to push more nominations and we're able to get more awards, because at the end of the day, it's to the glory of Africa.
Absolutely. Like I was saying, there's nothing more interesting and exciting, and there's this surge of patriotism that comes upon you when you're in New York or you are just somewhere in Europe, and you just go to your radio and the video song is playing, or a Burna Boy song is playing. You're like, aha! You may ignore us in several other ways, but the young talent that we have, the young talent and skills that we have will not allow you ignore us. You will play our music if you are not wearing our outfit. If you are not wearing our outfit or playing our music, you would recognize our art. Somehow, the creative industry has constantly been making us proud, which is something very exciting, and I hope that it continues. Fela's legacy, of course, would continue to resonate across generations, and I'm happy for that. Now we move to South Africa. In South Africa, the government has ordered the expulsion of Israel's top diplomat, Ariel Seidman, declaring the envoy persona non grata. The foreign ministry accused the Israeli in charge of affairs of violating diplomatic norms and undermining South Africa's sovereignty. Officials have said that the decision follows what they describe as insulting social media attacks against President Cyril Ramaphosa and a failure to properly notify authorities of visits by senior Israeli officials. The ministry called the conduct a breach of the Vienna Convention, further straining already tense relations. You remember that in Africa, I think President Ramaphosa was first to call out Israel. I think President Ramaphosa was first to charge Israel to the International Court for human rights violation. I think that's it at the time, and it's only natural. I'm even surprised that the foreign ministry have not had an internal rift with the Israeli embassy for all this while. But yes, here we are having the foreign ministry of South Africa accuse the Israeli in charge of affairs of violating diplomatic norms and undermining South African sovereignty. There's not much to that story, but we know, according to the South African side of it, that they had senior officials visiting without communicating.
No, there was a lot. He was accused of making publicly insulting comments about the president on social media. There was also failing to formally notify South African about senior Israeli officials, and then acting in ways that the government says violated diplomatic protocols under the Vienna Convention. So if you look at it, I think that, like you said, the decision is final, and you know, when this non-personal grata is given, it means that there's nothing to discuss, there is no explanation, there's no comment, there's nothing. So it just has to go. But then again, I understand that this decision reflects South Africa's willingness to take hard diplomatic positions based on principle, even at international cost. Right.
Absolutely. You know, South Africa has been very vocal as to where they stand. You know, by the time others are beginning to know what the BRICS is, South Africa has already joined BRICS quickly, and South Africa has, during this President Ramaphosa's administration, not cowered, and that's what we want for African leaders. He has not cowered. He joined the BRICS in spite of what the West was saying. He's not afraid. You know, that the South Africa, the S in the South Africa made BRICS. Because of course BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, and China. That's what it was: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. So when South Africa came, there was a S now that made it.
But other African countries should also take a cue from South Africa when it comes to being vocal and standing their ground. We do not have to cower when it comes to international bodies, and then we are afraid because we do not want to be in their bad books.
Exactly. And then when you think about it, what is the bad books? Because first of all, you need to remember that we can actually look, I mean, I'm all for diplomatic ties, absolutely, diplomatic allies and all of that, but we shouldn't, from a place of a subject versus master, we are subservient over any other person. We should be seen as partners. And I saw an article recently where someone said, what would it take to have a united? I mean, I know that the Libyan former president, Gaddafi, was all for a united Africa, where he said United States of Africa. I know a lot of people would go against it because you want to be president. But why can't we have United States of Africa? Instead of local government areas, it's turned to what? And instead of
United
states,
States of Africa.
instead of states, we turn it to local government. You're not, and geographically, we have the space. So nobody is touching the geographical space. We are just saying that we are a United States of Africa. What would it take to have that dream come true? When you put away greed and we look into Pan-Africanism and what would work for us.
But the big question is, can we take away the greed? Can we put away the greed?
Yeah, that's the big question, because we are here having this discussion, and I can't help, I'm embarrassed to admit that we still have access issues where Africans can't even visit their neighboring African countries without so much in visa fees, paying visa fees,
so much processes involved.
Going through so much process, even applying for visas and hoping to God that the visas are granted. In Africa, your brother, within Europe, you can travel across with your Schengen visa. Why don't we have a harmonized visa? Why is the ECOWAS bloc? Why is the Sahel bloc? Why is ECOWAS, African Union? Why are we not having these conversations? So it's sometimes annoying, outrightly annoying, that we still have these fundamental issues that have not been addressed, and yet we are quick to talk about my brother in Africa. If you travel out a lot and you meet the person has an accent, obviously, he will be quick to associate with any other part. Oh, I am American. Yeah, I am Brazilian. You're like, guy, you are very, very black. Where is your roots? It's only when you probe further and further that they can proudly tell you, oh yes, I am from Uganda, I am from Nigeria, I am Namibia, I am from the Gambia. Otherwise, they are quick to first tell you how they are Britons instead of telling you where their roots are. And would you blame them? They have not much to be proud of when they come to Africa. They have the image out there is one that no sane person wants to associate with. We are tagged as corrupt. We are tagged as security volatile. We are tagged as everything, but we are tagged as violent. That's the one that annoys me most.
Violent and corrupt.
Meanwhile, we are the most hospitable people you can ever meet on the planet. In Africa, you can't be in trouble and someone who has never met you pass you by. They would come to your help. Try it anywhere else. Try it anywhere else. You can't go hungry when your neighbor has. In Africa, that's the Africa that I know. The Africa that I know is one that you can't go hungry when your neighbor has. You're sure to get something.
Or you can't even be sick and then you find no one to help
you. It's only in other parts of the world that you read stories like, oh, he passed on for several days, nobody noticed he had passed. No, your neighbor will come now. We are intrusive, call us that, but we are very communal. We love each other. We are very hospitable. I'm not saying that we don't have our beat, but we need to be more united in this, in what makes us stronger. There's no country in the world that doesn't have its own. I was joking here on the program the other day that look at Minnesota, what's happening in America. As we speak, they're having their bout of End SARS. That is End SARS right there. But today, we call it, oh, they're just protesting. But human rights abuses are rife. The same thing we faced here. When it happened here, we saw narratives and nuances from America and other parts of the world, making it look like the worst is happening in Africa. Oh, there is so much human rights abuses. But it's happening right there in the West, in the so-called civilized countries that will show us the way to what we call the proper civilization. Again, who sets the standard? So I honestly am excited that South Africa is not cowering. Yes, if you do something wrong in our country, let your skin be bright as sun. We would call you out and ensure that the right thing is done. And we've had a lot of expatriates in Nigeria who get away with so much just because. There was a time it was so rife that we had a lot of people complain oh, they work with this expatriate and they violate several human. Listen, there was even a story I covered several years ago where a Chinese, a Chinese, not a diplomat really, just a businessman in Nigeria, was not just verbally but physically abusing Nigerian staff. Physically abusing Nigerian staff. I can't remember also some time ago, there was a certain minister that went to a factory for a tour to see how, was it a minister? Or I can't remember, but long story short, when he got to that factory and saw the way Nigerians were treated, where Nigerian staff were made to sleep, Simbiat, it was terrible. But these people
in
need
contrast
jobs.
to where they are actual staffs, like from their own country.
No. For their own country, they have better arrangements, welfare for them.
And if you look at it, Nigerians will even be the ones to do more of the work. In fact,
absolutely, of course.
And then we are being treated like
exactly. So we do more of the work, and when we are treated just because we do not have enough jobs, you will tell yourself, if this is what I have to face so that I can feed my family, let me face it. And that's the resilience that African leaders are supposed to harness and ensure that we use. Nigerians are resilient. We use positively,
not in a negative
and not
way.
Abuse it. Often we hear us say, "Oh, you push us to the wall, we would cave
adapt.
the wall.
Nigerians
we will cave the wall."
Adapt.
Yes. When subsidies were removed, and somebody was like, "Oh, that is going to be the end of this administration," I laughed and said, "Nigerians, in a year we have forgotten."
There was even a time that formerly Twitter was banned, and then people even had to devise ways. We started using VPNs, and everybody just seemed to move on with the new trend because like that's it. Nobody is calling anybody else. Nobody is trying to complain because we feel like regardless of the situation, we would survive, which is not always. But that
resilience is making us become international stars in whatever we are doing all over the world. You cannot, when you meet a Nigerian, before we go for this short break, I need to share the story of a Nigerian couple in Minnesota that were driving and were stopped by ICE agents, and this ICE agent got into their car and they drove off and called police to say, "Police, we have there's a policeman there's a white man in our vehicle. We don't know what he's doing. We're bringing him to the police station." ICE agents, and the man tried to identify her, like, "Man, I don't know who you are," and they took him to the police station. Of course, that was taken. They were charged and it was taken to court, and of course, that the judge nullified that case and said yes, they felt threatened and they don't know who you are. So there's this trend recently that is only Nigerians that can kidnap ICE agents and still get away with it. That's who we are. That's how innovative and intelligent we are. But we're going for a short break. When we return, there are still several stories across Africa that we're bringing to you. So stay tuned. We will be right back. This is Razep Africa.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.
Welcome back from that break. Now we're moving to Central Africa, where the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo has outlined strict conditions for a proposed national dialogue aimed at easing political tensions. Speaking to diplomats in Kinshasa, he said that unity was essential as fighting continues in the country's east between government forces and Rwanda-backed M23 rebels. He also said that dialogue must take place inside the country, remain under constitutional control, and not challenge legitimacy of elected authorities or court rulings. His remarks come amid opposition calls for talks and renewed regional effort to stabilize Eastern Congo ahead of what he described as a decisive period for the nation. This is coming. This is so interesting, and I like that there's going to be a proposed national dialogue. There's always I'm hoping that this would be a good thing for the people of Congo. There's been so much conflict in Congo as well.
The ongoing war in the east with Rwanda-backed M23 rebels. We also have the deep mistrust between government and opposition, and also questions around election legitimacy. So all of this is why the national dialogue is important. But basically, in any country, you know, national dialogue is something that helps reduce political tension after disrupted elections, or it also helps to prevent violence by offering political solutions instead of force. So I feel like it's a welcome, it's a very interesting thing to know that they have plans to...
Absolutely. And you know, President Felix Tshisekedi has been trying his best in trying to ensure that there is some sort of sanity in that regard. Unfortunately, we've been having this conflict within the people of Congo. And you know, the most concerning part of this is the fact that we keep talking about crisis here, conflict here, violent outbreaks here, especially across Africa. And maybe we do not need the West to come in and help us. Maybe we need help within. Whatever happened to that peace? There's this peace committee. I don't think, it emanated from Nigeria, I think, it emanated from Nigeria. That peace committee that ensures that these are not Congolese. Okay. These are going to be individuals from other parts of Africa that are coming in to help. They are not. So
the help will come from within.
It will come from within. I'm all for help coming from within. Let us look for peculiar ways to solve our problems and not necessarily.
But this kind of dialogue, does it usually work in Africa?
Well, we had the 2013 confab. We've had national dialogues here in Nigeria. If you ask me, it's a case of now who I go ask, because intentionality must follow these dialogues, these bringing together, fighting.
But do you think this dialogue can succeed while war is still going on in Eastern Congo? Because
yes, it can. Unity... Again, intentionality. If we come together, if we are intentional about coming together to ensure that it works, everyone with the intention for peace and dropping your arms and all that, I'm sure it will work. Why would it not work? There's been serious political tensions, and who are feeling political tensions? These are human beings. The minute everyone comes together to say, for the sake of Congo, let us have peace.
But do you think the dialogue is for peace? It's basically for peace, or for maybe it's political containment? Do you think they actually want the peace, or it's just for It's just for him to like control the
initial
power.
grab.
Yes, it's for him to control.
Absolutely, there's a bit of everything, and you won't. If he doesn't use his political place to ensure peace, what else would he use? So I am not pushing away the narrative.
Both can work simultaneously.
Yes, it can work simultaneously. At this moment, when you hear stories from Congo, I have a friend who's in Congo at the moment, although as a diplomat, of course, when I hear stories coming from Congo, it is so concerning. It is so concerning that I mean, for somebody like me who loves Africa, I'm not sure what to do, but I don't mind if peace will be driven by symbiote with no political plans. And that's why I was even asking for a peace committee. I'm sure there's a department in the African Union that has a peace committee or something like that. They should charge in there and see how fighting parties can come together. Congo has been known for all the wrong things. We have child labor. We have so many unfortunate stories coming out of Congo.
There are too many security crises, political crisis as well, and also historical baggages, like the issue of, like, Congo has had history of failed transitions, foreign interference, and also armed groups filling power vacuums. So the reason for this national dialogue, I believe it will address all of these situations, and it will hopefully bring the much needed peace.
Yes, I mean you can't talk of Congo without remembering Mobutu Seko, who was, I think he was president for so long. Third term, 4 terms, I think he was the leader for up to 4 terms in Congo. So we've had such stories coming from Congo where he led, and of course he was a military officer at the time, and the only president at the time. Congo was Zaire. That's he led from 1971 to 1997. And we've had stories like this, and you tell yourself, when would we have a Congo that brings that sanity and not have the issues that we are facing right now? That's where we are at the moment. How can we have that and not have the crises and tensions across Congo? But it's good to know that there's a call for national dialogue. I'm hoping that there will be an external body that will come foresee this call for dialogue and ensure that we have good intentions, and not the political undertone that we often see.
Okay, so I have the conditions here. The conditions according to the president. He says that dialogue must happen inside Congo.
Absolutely.
The second one is that it must be under institutional control. The third would be that it must not question its legitimacy, and then we also have that it must not overturn court rulings. All of this I don't think he's asking for too much. It's just everything is within the constitutional rights, especially because he's president. So what would your suggestion be? Let's say you are part of the committee for the national dialogue. What would you suggest as?
I just want fighting parties to come to the table and say, this is our problem, this is what we want. Is it achievable? And I agree with you, the dialogue has to be in Congo. It shouldn't be anywhere else. It should be in Congo. Intentionality.
Should be under institutional control.
Absolutely, institutional control. And I know when a politician says it should be under institutional control, it can get a bit concerning, and a lot of people will become a bit skeptical about what it means. What it just means, if intentionality is there for the fighting parties to shelve their fight, is just ensure that you are approached by certain institutions like the ministry of
the government must be the one to set the rules, the agendas, and also the outcomes.
Yes, exactly. So the recommended parastatal department or agency or whatever that's going to be in charge of it, allow those ones to reach out. If you have of course petitions and all that in the most sane way, because I also understand how this could go left, where you have good intentions, you're trying to bring people together, and Simbiat will say, you did not call my brother, you called only me. Why did you not call? Why did you not call this person?
There'll be a way to...
So institutional control is very important in these dialogues to ensure peace reigns. Absolutely, let's ensure that peace reigns, because you know when you leave Congo, for instance, and now go to Niger's capital, you know, Niamey, where at the moment we have footages that tells that the jihadist has also published of 4 soldiers that were injured and several aircraft damaged in an assault on the Niamey International Airport. This video is showing an explosion inside hangar housing a helicopter and another aircraft on fire. Gunshots also damaged several passenger planes. These are issues that we are facing. You would think that, okay, now we have Niger under the coup, because Nigerians will say if we only had the military government, we would have sanity in such a way that we would not have the security challenges we have. But here is a military government still tackling jihadis and terrorists and all of that. Going to the international airport, and a strategic place, of course, to shoot down. These are the kind of issues that we have across Africa that must be addressed. So there's intentionality that has to be. The beauty about the Congolese rift and the beauty about the Sudanese rift is that you can put a face. You can put a face to the fighting parties. You can put a name to the fighting parties. But the problem happening in Niger, nonetheless, is that there is no face to the fighting parties. These are people led by an ideology. Exactly. It makes it difficult to tackle, because by the time you come and say, let us dialogue, what are you going for?
There's even nobody to meet in the first place.
Who are you going to meet? Exactly. So these are people who have been positioned for destruction, and so you see the problems that they face therein. Very unfortunate. I'm hoping above everything that we will have a Congo that will be beyond, and I'm happy what is happening with Sudan will no longer happen. We are beginning to record normalcy, and I'm hoping that Congo, which is another country in Africa that has been having that serious agitations and violence and all that political tension, would come to a close, and we would have that dialogue above everything, so that it will bring trust. I would insist, before we leave that story, so that there will be trust. I am hoping that
emphasis on the trust.
Because you cannot have peace if the opposing parties, the fighting parties, do not trust the process. They must trust the process. So for you to trust the process, let us open up for international parties to come together and maybe oversee, supersede, I don't know what the proper term for it, but let's see the intentionality from both sides, and have advice from parties whose intention, of course, is good for Congo. And that party, and the only bloc that we have, would be the regional bloc, which is African Union. That we can achieve. Okay, so leaving the Congo story, and I'm hoping that you too can see what's going on in Congo. You could read more about it. Finally, we move to Kenya. In this year's Nairobi Fashion Week has challenged designers and consumers to rethink fashion through a sustainability-first lens. Well, organizers used the event to spotlight fashion's climate impact, urging the industry to cut emissions, adopt ethical practices, and move towards regenerative production models. Designers highlighted Africa's potential to lead in sustainable fashion, while also criticizing the environmental damage caused by second-hand clothing imports. Organizers say that the theme reflects a broader global shift, with African creatives increasingly at the forefront of conversations around climate responsibility and innovation in fashion. This is such a welcome development, especially in the fight against climate irresponsibility, as I like to put it. Now, what better way to drum that important need for climate related issues than use fashion?
Much more than fashion. There's a whole lot to unpack from this story, because it makes us, from this fashion week, it makes us see the world much more than fashion. Okay, we can see that Africans now, especially this second-hand products, we are very much, in fact, it feels like that is what we are known for, which is not supposed to be so. We are much more than Africans. We can make our dresses, especially Nigerians. We have beautiful fabrics, beautiful, like we have the tie and dye, we have the adire, we have the batik, we have the damask, we have a whole lot. Then we now have to rely on second-hand clothes, or we have to rely on the foreign style of dressing, which I feel is not really good enough. Speaking on that, I remember the last time we were on air, and then you said, "Oh, this is an African show. We're not supposed to look at us today. We are still not showing up in an African way." But conversations like this will make us at least sit up and then do better when it comes to.
So for instance, there's so much that has to be done in the fashion industry, especially if we talk about Africa. We'll get into the sustainability talk and the climate change talk, but let's first of all talk about the problems with Africa. Now, governments who are very intentional about having Africa wear Africa in a bid to portray our culture and tradition should check our textile industry. It is very embarrassing that we have Chinese companies in China producing our local fabrics, and then we have to go to China to buy Ankara.
And then it's even seen as more original than the one here.
Oh yeah, and
they will tell you that it has a code. Okay, yeah, this is foreign. This is foreign,
and all of that,
which is not supposed to be so.
We travel to Thailand to buy African fabrics, because our government have not seen the need for it. How many Chinese people do you see wear those fabrics? It's still for the African market. So they have been very conscious about knowing what works in Africa and then sending it down. Just imagine, you see Africans travel all over the world to buy African fabrics everywhere else but Africa. We know the Senegalese outfits that we used to wear proudly. They become, because now when you now put side by side the drift clothes or second-hand clothes, as we like to call it here, the prices, and then you see how much it is to buy fabrics, and the person who is buying is telling you, listen, I had to travel to China for these fabrics. You will not blame a Nigerian for saying, or an African for saying, it's cheaper to just buy these second-hand clothes. And these are not clothes that are meant, and that is what I need to tell Nigerians. These clothes we wear often are meant for they were brought in initially, the intent for loading them into African boats or whatever to be shipped down, are supposed to be for charity. Believe it or not. The intent is not to sell. A lot of these second-hand clothes are for charity. They were packed for charity. So people finish wearing and you're like, okay, let me send it to the poor Africans. And it's a big business for a lot of Africans, because
now they even call it thrift. They call it thrift wears, and it's even much more expensive.
Exactly.
The money that you would even use to buy a thrift trouser, you could actually buy an Ankara, or even buy a tie and dye and then wear it proudly, because it's even new than using that expensive money to buy thrift clothes, because
and you know, a lot is embedded in this. I keep saying how all of us now have a foreign taste foreign taste in everything, foreign taste in our meals, in our dressing. But that's only also because the foreigners have been intentional in pushing products down here, and we are just been open to collecting this thing.
Even if you want to look at this African wears too, now we are even westernizing everything, even down to the styles, the designs. People do no longer want to wear the African style. No Yoruba lady wants to wear the traditional Iran buba. Now everybody's wearing corsets, or we are wearing jackets, even made with Ankara or African fabrics.
Exactly, and there's nothing you cannot do with the African fabric because it's colorful, it's vibrant, it is fun. I think we should do that again, Simbiat, on the show, where I went to the street to ask people across Nigeria to say, would you feel a certain way if you had your banker or your bankers dressed in African attire? Let the uniform, if they must wear uniform, is corporate African attire and not the suit and tie. Would you feel a certain way if your children's school now tell you, we no longer use the Western method of dressing, but we dress in the African attire. We make it uniform-like, but African attire. Believe it or not, the responses I got at the time, I think we'll do that Vox Pop again. The responses I got at the time was very sad. A lot of Nigerians still want to see their bankers on suit and tie. According to them, it doesn't make it look like a weekday. That's most of the responses we got at the time when we got to the street. And I'll bring that interview back here, and we would have a conversation again. Would you feel a certain way? He said, I would laugh if I get to the bank and everyone is dressed as if it's a wedding. When did African attire become attires you wear only for weddings?
Or even in schools. Even in schools.
And
now,
in schools,
let's just imagine where school students, they are wearing African attires as their uniform, not career day or maybe a traditional
African
day,
attire
as their regular uniform. I genuinely don't think that many Nigerians will buy into it, because we have the mentality of, oh, it's local. People will even start calling or thinking that your children are attending local schools. You know, everybody wants the British way. We want to wear skirts on jackets, on pop socks and the likes.
It's really unfortunate.
It's really unfortunate.
And we need to start working on our minds, like I've always said here on the show. Love Africa. Let's talk Africa, love Africa, engage with Africa, and see how you can reflect the beauty in Africa across the world. But yes, we would do better. We need to do better, and we need to start working on our minds. I often wonder what responsible organizations are doing, because if I own a bank, I will start it and see how it goes. If I own the school, I probably will start it and say, everybody wear your Ankara.
Again, I'm going to put you on the spot. So we are going to start. We don't have to wait till you have a bank.
Okay, so
we're going to start with Razep Africa. So tell us where we are going to wear African attire for the entire week, and then we'll show
up. In fact, starting from me, African attire all the way. African attire all the way. Razep Africa is making that promise. But until next time when we come your way, I am Dr. Joy Asoyin.
And I'm Simbiat Amzat. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's been wonderful being on the show and going through Africa and discussing stories across Africa today. Until next time when we come, be rest assured we'll come, of course. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Welcome to Razep Africa, the heartbeat of the continent in one show. Here, we celebrate Africa not as a headline, but as a home full of ideas, courage, flavor, and future. This is where we talk about everything Africa. The politics that shape our nations, the innovations that shift our economies, the culture that colors our lives, the challenges we face with honesty, and the victories we are building one story at a time. On this show, no topic is swept aside. We are unfiltered and we are intentional. We bring you experts from across the continent and the world. Voices that know, voices that live the African experience, voices that are shaping the next chapter of our story. Let your spirit rise. We don't just tell Africa's story, we own it. Join Joy Asonye on Razep Africa, Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. to 12 noon on Global Television.